Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Sophie. This is going to be a reading vlog.
Biblio-Sophie.
So yes, I feel like I haven't done a reading vlog in a little while. I like doing them. It's kind of a fun content for me to film and piece together. Also, I always have the ulterior motive of using them as a pretext to kind of aestheticize and organize my life a little bit. It's now very much September and I have longer term projects that I want to deal with. And it feels like this could be a way to get myself a little bit more productive. What are those projects? Mainly, I need to start writing my dissertation proposal. So if you don't know, I'm currently getting a doctorate. I finished my coursework and this year I submit a dissertation proposal of my thesis and I have the school year to do it and I should do it in little bits and pieces. So I am trying to do things in an organized and coherent fashion so that it doesn't seem too unmanageable. I have an accountability buddy system with another member of my cohort, and yesterday I sent her a text with I think 4 items that I wanted to get done this week. We'll see. I'm gonna try to be relatively kind of coherent about things, give myself homework and do things in an organized fashion. How many times can I say the same thing? I'm quite tired this morning because I did not sleep enough at all. The upside, I guess, is that I did do some dissertation work in the middle of the night. It did not help me fall back asleep, as you could imagine. But another thing that I would like to do, as in so many other vlogs that I've had, is try to be more sensible about my sleep schedule, better about my morning schedule. I feel like it's always the same things, and it kind of does help me do that for at least a little bit. Then I fall back into bad habits typically, but hey, if you can have a couple of weeks of good habits every so often, it can only help. Because I didn't sleep very much last night, I listened to a big chunk of Babel by R.F. Kuang. I will probably be calling it Babel because I'm listening to it as an audiobook and I keep hearing it as Babel, but I do realize that my North American accent should mean that I say Babel. We'll see. I don't really care. I hope you don't either. I will talk about it more at some future point, but I'm finding it okay, good, even. I'm liking it enough. I'm also finding it a little bit heavy-handed and a little bit simplistic, which isn't shocking, but there are definitely some things that I quite like about it. So let's see if I finish it. It's quite long. The audiobook is a very good experience, so I suspect I will continue to be listening to it in my kind of day-to-day this week. I also started yesterday Notes on Suicide by Critchley. I mentioned this in my plans for shorty September, and I read about 25 pages of it yesterday. Yep, I think exactly actually. This is a long essay on suicide as a cultural concept, essentially, and I'm liking it so far as well. I'm not shocked that I like it. This is the kind of long-form, memoiristic, cross-cultural, and especially kind of literary piece that I tend to chew up very happily. I have far too many books currently on my started reading. So this week, one of the things that I might want to do is actually just condense that and actually finish a bunch of those books, because I think I am technically currently reading something like 5 or 6 books, and If you know me, you know that I'm usually juggling many books at once, but that's too many. So a lot of them are quite short, and I need to just finish them and move on to the next book instead of just constantly having all of these thirds of books read. So I'm going to finish this before I start my next book, for instance. I'll probably finish it today. Okay, I'm going to have my breakfast. I'm going to teach. I have an audition this afternoon that I'm going to teach again. I have quite a lot of housework to do. I need to give some books back to the library. So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of daily life things to be taken care of. Wish me luck. Hello. I'm having a pretty mediocre Italian ice that I bought myself out of duress, under duress, I guess, last week when it was really, really hot, and I wanted desperately some sorbet, and I couldn't find any. So I bought this, and it was okay. I just got back from a rehearsal and doing some school library stuff, and I feel really overwhelmed and rudderless and unmotivated, and like I need to do my dissertation proposal for December, and I don't, but I kind of secretly want to, and I don't think I can, and I don't want to do the things that I set out for myself for the week, and I don't know what I'm doing with my career, and also I don't like the way I look today, even though I look fine, but I couldn't figure out how to dress myself, and so I reverted to this white shirt as soon as I got back home, which has been one of the 3 white collared shirts that I keep just wearing all the time, usually at home, but sometimes out and about, and it really annoys me. I don't like it. Nobody does. Hot take. I don't like not feeling like I am a good, competent person, and I don't like feeling like I don't look good and interesting and fun and cute and great, because I should feel those things. So that's your update, and I'm gonna eat this Italian ice, and then I'm gonna go back out again. That's really hard. Ah! AT's not that cute. Maybe I just...
Breath holding can be deadly. No intentional hyperventilation or underwater competitive breath holding. From the New York Health Code.
Yeah?
Wow.
That's not what we're doing.
That's always what I do.
Are you enjoying your
your
pool experience, your Margaritaville experience?
Yeah.
You're very close to camera and filming right now, which is great.
In the peak of summer, like this would be lit.
Yeah.
It's warm, it's hot. If I was
So, since the last time I talked to you, I went from kind of generalized grumpiness to really full-fledged crisis, which has been bubbling. I mean, it's been bubbling my entire life. It's been bubbling my entire artistic career, on and off, of course. And very much this past month, September really brings out a lot of anxiety about state of future season. Have I booked enough things? Am I going to ever book anything again? Etc., etc. But I really devolved into a whole ass mess during the night of Wednesday to Thursday. Did not sleep at all. So anyway, I've been sort of recuperating from that. Have not done too much reading or too much of anything, it seems to me. I have started doing some writing, which is good. It's a bit of a slow-going process. I don't know if what I'm writing is to be used for my dissertation or is The Journal of My Solitude. That's a fun literary joke, but also is a little true. We'll see. What I have read is I have finished The Passion According to GH. It's very much Clarice Lispector, so we are contemplating humanness and infinity and the void and what she calls neutral living, kind of animal living versus humanity. A lot of themes that are in different forms in her other books. This one more overtly, I think, because of the little bit of plot that it has, the human versus non-human animal and the kind of shell of humanity. In short, the plot is woman kills cockroach, has existential crisis. As a very pithy reader on StoryGraph, or potentially Goodreads, but then traveled over to StoryGraph, put it, went to the void and realized I'm God, don't call or text. Which I think is a lovely way to sum this up. I really liked this. I think it is now my second favorite Clarice Lispector. I think I still prefer Breath of Life, actually. And this afternoon, I reread in its entirety, in one sitting, basically, Água, Viva, which I've been meaning to reread. It's another very, very tiny one. I offered to lend it to someone I met on a rooftop in Ridgewood last weekend this afternoon, and it urged me to reread it again because I'm going to lose it for some unknown amount of time. And I am so glad I did. This is about attempting to lasso the eternal, infinite energy of self and creation into the micro creation of communication, essentially. I'm using a lot of big words. It doesn't have much more plot than that. This is really not a story. This has a little bit of a story, and that is a pretext for a whole lot of existential monologue. This one is really just exclusively existential monologue. Do these fit? Oh yeah. No, wait, no. I'm wrong. I do this every time. No, they do. Yeah, okay, they do. These are the bottom. So that's been quite a highlight, especially the past afternoon of finishing this up. I still have not finished Notes on Suicide, but I'm very close. I'll probably bring that tonight with me, and I'm gonna stop it there because I actually need to head out. But I look cute. I just put on a little makeup, a little vestie, and I'm gonna go to a show. Ciao.
Legacy?
No, not at all.
Books, tablets, stuff like that.
Okay, let's do a little bookie update, shall we? I have some more books which I finished. First of all, this, if you're wondering about this lovely accessory, it's because I gave blood earlier today. So, feeling pretty cool and looking even cooler with this fun bandage. Books that I have read or am reading. I didn't talk about Babel really earlier. I haven't really done any more reading of it since the last time I spoke about it, i.e. since that one night that I listened to a bunch of it. I don't know if I'm going to continue it. It's fine. I recommend it to you if you like historical fiction, if you like soft fantasy, if you like plot. The premise of it is that it is speculative fiction that takes place in 1830s England. The primary character is a Chinese boy and then pretty quickly young man whom we follow in his scholarly studies. The speculative kind of fantasy component of Babel I won't talk too much about, but just to give like the tiniest bit of information that you would find out quite early on, this is an alternative history in which silver is being used to essentially cast spells, and the power behind these spells is built on the power of words, and specifically the power of translation. So it's actually a conceit, ergo the name Babel. It's actually a conceit that, of course, suits me, that I like. The idea behind the magic is that you have a pair of words, one in one language, one in another, and the imperfect overlap of meaning, connotations, and kind of the fanning out of how those words are used is a kind of paradox that can be harnessed for power. I think that's a really interesting idea. I fully agree with the concept of the imperfect overlap, of course. I mean, it's not exactly a controversial opinion, but I also kind of agree in the magic of that imperfect overlap. That is really what interests me so much about translation and about language in general. So that definitely has a lot to appeal to me. The things that are keeping me from loving the book have to do a little bit because I'm not a very genre-y sort of person. So some aspects of that, the writing is definitely plot heavy and I don't care that much, but I can handle plot, and I can also handle fantasy aspects. I don't need reality, actually not at all. The thing that is most annoying is the overly heavy-handed analysis of essentially the British Empire, which I agree with, but this is very much a book about being othered, and I can't speak to that, of course. I think it is probably a pretty good representation of feeling out of place as a non-white person, but it feels very heavy-handed in a lot of ways. It's very, very explicit. And then about the evils of the British Empire, of capitalism, of wealth disparity and wealth hoarding and power hoarding. All of which, again, true, said sometimes in a pretty funny way, interesting way, sensitive way, and then sometimes in a way that's a little like, okay, yeah, sure, I get it. So I'm not falling in love with it. I may finish it, I may not. It's not really high up on my list of, important life to-do. Regarding translation, I started this little art by Kate Briggs. I've read 25 pages of it. I love it so far. It's definitely my type of book. This is a book about books. If you watched my shelf tour, you know that I have an entire section of my library of books about writing, books about writers, and specifically the nichest of subgenres that I love is books about translation and the art of language and trying to capture language. So yeah, so far enjoying that. Finally getting around to it. I finished 2 more books. I finally did finish Notes on Suicide, which I also really enjoyed. This edition, short little edition, also includes the David Hume on suicide essay, which I recommend reading as well. This is, as I have previously stated, a book about suicide and the kind of complexities of it and how it's seen, almost the moral question of suicide. It's not an impartial look on suicide. You can't have one. It's sort of one of the arguments of the book that it's really impossible to have an unbiased opinion, a clear-headed opinion of suicide. The first section of this long essay is the impossibility of having a logical argument against suicide first, and then for it. So it definitely dismantles some of the typical arguments on the immorality of suicide that are usually religious, but it also does acknowledge that you can't ever quite have a totally kind of libertarian, humanist, anybody can commit suicide if they want approach that doesn't suffer from some logical fallacies as well. So we're in this conundrum where it's impossible to be an uninterested player in the argument around is suicide acceptable, because it's just not, even if you, like me, are not a religious person, and I don't consider suicide amoral or immoral rather than amoral. I don't consider it immoral. I don't consider it sinful. I basically consider that people have the right to suicide, but also it's not an easy argument to hold, really. There are leaps no matter what your position is. The second half deals with suicide notes and the kind of the literature of suicide, and seeing death notes as works of writing, as creations. This was very, very interesting. I wonder if I said the word suicide enough times that now YouTube is going to flag this as a problematic video. It's okay. It's fine. When reading this book, in fact, some things to keep in mind is that this is what it's talking about. So some trigger warnings definitely for suicidal ideation. I think it's also definitely very readable if you have suicidal ideation tendencies. I don't think it would necessarily be triggering, but it can be. So, be mindful of that. I would not jump in with without your eyes open. Is that? I don't know. That was sort of a hackneyed metaphor. And finally, this morning I read basically in one sitting, because that's kind of how these books are meant to be read, In the Act by Rachel Ingalls. I'm not going to talk really about the plot of this at all. This centers around a married couple, very stereotypical, proper domestic married couple, don't see eye to eye, very estranged from one another. She all of a sudden is home a little bit more than she has been because she doesn't have anything to occupy her time, and he is tinkering in his kind of personal laboratory on a mysterious project, and he doesn't want her around at all. She finds out what it is, and hijinks ensue. This was really fun. I really, really enjoyed this. It was a really good dissection of gender roles and married life and couples not seeing one another. I'm definitely on the side of the woman in this couple. She's not, a perfect angel, but I think she's objectively better. I think he is a nightmare. But I won't say too much. I'm not spoiling things. And about, the alienation that the kind of heteronormative married couple without passion ends up creating in their relationship. So I definitely recommend it. I picked it up just yesterday from the library because I was watching Renee's wrap up of it, and I thought, okay, yes, absolutely, I think this is going to be great. She was right when she said it was great, and I'm telling you that it's great. All right, and that's it. Now I'm going to go teach some French. The pathos.
And then the large animal
I know,
beasts.
everything else around them is
everything
so large. Are allowed to exist. Hello, today is Saturday. I am gonna wrap up this vlog, give you a few more book updates on a couple more books. I do want to show you this shirt that I got. You may recall that I was on the cusp of my big crisis breakdown last week while eating an Italian ice, and this is the company. There was on the box a little, send out for a t-shirt thing, advertisement rather, and I bought the shirt. Great $10 investment, I think. I love it. I'm delighted by this shirt. So that's an important life update. I have been writing more, and I'm trying to be even better about it. I have been doing some dissertation-y sort of thinking and writing in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, which is good. It's been kind of slow going and painful, as I've alluded to. I published some thoughts into a thing on my Substack. If you're interested in following along on my journey, I am going to try to publish more on that, which I say about every 6 months. We'll see if I actually do that. I'm conceiving of writing on there more often as a means of just kind of the in-process stuff. So there may be a goodly amount of stuff around poetry and poetics and music setting and kind of synesthesia and multisensory understanding of poetics and performance of words through music and synesthesia, which I think I already said that, and ekphrasis and stuff. So if you're interested in that, and also my extremely infrequent thoughts on other things, but a lot of thoughts about reading and translation, check out my Substack, sophiedelphus.substack.com. It's in my socials, in the video description usually. I want to mention a couple of other, or actually 3 other Substacks by booktubers that you probably watch and love also, if you're watching me, and their Substacks are really good. The 2 Kirans, Katie Books is at Dank Academia, and Kieran Reader is, I forgot her Substack handle, but they're good. And I'm also gonna mention Nookish Notes of Nathan's Nook. All 3 are interesting, well written. You probably already know and like the people behind them. So if you are not reading their Substacks yet, what are you doing? You're doing it wrong, because if you like their channels, you're gonna like their written thoughts. Let me tell you, I do, and I have good taste. Speaking of things that I have read and liked, ooh, look at that seamless transition. I haven't read that much more of This Little Art than the last time I talked about it briefly, so that'll probably be in a wrap-up. Really like it. It's also funny because for me, or comes at a really good time for me, because this summer I just read Thomas Mann's Magic Mountain, the Helen Lowe Porter translation. Mostly I dipped into another translation as well, but predominantly I was reading the Lowe Porter translation, which is kind of the basis of this book. Actually, this is what it starts with, a consideration of that particular translation of that book, and the kind of elision that we have of what it means to consume something in translation, the needful elisions that we make of, okay, yeah, I'm reading this book even though I'm reading a different version, a different person's version of this book. And in fact, This Little Art is, I believe, a Lowe Porter quotation, or from a Lowe Porter quotation. So that's been kind of particularly not on the nose, appropriate, let's just say. And it's also, in terms of my academic life and my dissertation life, obliquely very, very related. I'm definitely, what's nice is that I'm definitely highly influenced by my academic interests and life and kind of research in terms of what pleasure reading I go towards, but also my pleasure reading actually really does inform my official reading a lot. I have always managed to walk that line. I like to have my cake and eat it too in that way. I think I said eat my cake and eat it too previously in this video, so maybe that's the weirdly specific expression that I'm overusing in this vlog. I can't remember, but I did say it the other day. I just can't remember if it was to this camera. So yes, I have been finding, ever since I have started writing for more official things, that I really am drawing upon my pleasure reading a lot. And definitely Clarice Lispector is twining into my dissertation thought process, if not my actual dissertation, although you will see a citation of Lispector's from Água, Viva in the little essay that I posted a few days ago. So we'll see how kosher that is. So far, I'm liking it. I'm liking doing that, but this, to go back to this book, has a lot for me that is, yeah, kind of obliquely related to what I'm thinking of, because I really am thinking of translation not just from language to language, but from impulse to language, language to sound, word on the page to sound, etc., etc. I'm really obsessed with the concept of translation as more than going from, German to English, and everything that it entails. Again, if you've listened to me talk a lot, and or if you've read some of my writing, this is not going to be tremendously surprising to you. And my last update is that I read Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. I've been interested in reading it for a couple of months, and really interested for several weeks. I mentioned it in my Shorty September plans video, and I started it very briefly. I read a few pages of it almost 2 weeks ago, but I finally actually read it the day before last and into yesterday morning. It's very short. I really loved it. I know that is kind of a mixed bag for people. It's had a very mixed reaction from people. I'm one of those people who really likes it. I am not surprised that I am. I was excited about it because I'm excited about Sarah Bernstein. I read her previous novel, The Coming Bad Days, and really liked it. And this feels like it's coming from the same author. It's very, very claustrophobic and internal and uncomfortable. It doesn't super overtly state a lot of things, which I think is frustrating for a lot of people. I, however, found a lot of the allusions that it makes pretty clear. I think I was thinking about this while walking yesterday, and to me, the picture it makes up is blurry, but extremely heavy or thick in hue. So there's a lot there, and it's not this diaphanous thing. However, it isn't this super, super objective and clean plot line. It doesn't have much plot. So very, very briefly, this is about a woman who is the youngest of a large family that was certainly very controlling and, in my eyes, pretty abusive to her and probably to all of the members of the family, but in a very, very controlling environment. She has built up a giant chunk of her personality around obedience and being helpful and being compliant. She moves in with her brother in an unnamed foreign country in the north of Europe. She's presumably, much like Sarah Bernstein, coming from Canada and going to some sort of northern area where she doesn't speak the language at all, and she can't pick it up. She becomes his housekeeper, caretaker. Things are going weirdly. They have a really fraught, weird relationship in which he's extremely controlling to her. So there's a lot of internalized stuff on a smaller kind of familial scale, but there's also a lot of claustrophobic discomfort about her lot in life and in the village. She's very much ostracized by the village, and also weird things are happening, these kind of mysterious things. I won't say too much more about plot. Also, there's not that much more than this in plot. This is very, very much about misogyny, control, compliance, and also complicity, and it is very much about xenophobia and anti-Semitism. The kinds of things that you see over and over as the tropes of anti-Semitism. An outsider comes into a small village and things go wrong. And it's a foundational aspect of the anti-Semitism that we know and hate. So to me, that aspect is really, really, really clear. And also, I don't need that much more detail because it is blurry. And the kind of internalized alienation also, we don't get too many reasons, but I don't desperately need to know all of the reasons behind them. They seem pretty logical. It's a combination of controlling parent environment, of this imposed genetic shame, of imposed misogynistic shame, of just character. So there are all of these, it's this pit of alienation and outsiderness, and also attempting to figure things out and to make connections. I thought it was really, really interesting, beautifully written. Yeah, I was a fan. So if you've read it, I understand people who don't like it because I think it is not, obviously, you know, nothing's ever for everyone. And this is, it's, you know, you have to have a certain kind of frame of mind and desire in your reading, but I liked it, and I would be curious to see if you liked it. That was a little bit longer winded than I meant it to be. But that's always the case. So I'm gonna wrap her up. Some really good reading the past almost 2 weeks. Weird highs and lows of my life, which you sort of got to see on the outer edges of my updates. Why not? I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.